La uqsimu biyawm al-qiyamah. It's got more meaning to it. So it's an extra emphasis. And probably the reason for that extra emphasis is when the disbelievers were so strong in denying its existence, so Allah brought extra emphasis in swearing that it exists.
الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. First of all, what I would just like to do is to add a few points to what we spoke about last week. There are one or two areas where I just want to go into a little bit more detail, which maybe we missed out. And I wondered maybe we covered them in Juz Amma, but perhaps it's worth just to make a couple of extra points. So we just take 5-10 minutes just to cover a couple of things from last week. First of all, we covered in Juz Amma, in Surah Al-Balad, this issue of starting an oath with La. La uqsimu bihadha al-balad. And here we've got La uqsimu biyawm al-qiyamah. Why does it start with La? Ibn Kathir mentions it himself. I might have to put this up here, so I think to hear me properly. Ibn Kathir himself, he said, قد تقدم غير مرة أن المقسم عليه إذا كان منتفيا جاز الإتيان بلا. He said, we've already spoken a number of times that if, and I'll give you the meaning of what he said, if this is something that people deny, if it's something that people deny, you can bring La in front of it. So the La doesn't mean I'm not swearing. It's not that Allah, and some of the scholars, they said that. They said the La, it is what it says. Allah is saying, I'm not swearing by Yawm al-Qiyamah because it doesn't even need an oath. It's so clear that it's going to happen. But that is not what comes to mind when you read the ayah. That's not what is like. That's a very kind of long way around the issue. But generally what we understood from it is that when people deny something and you swear to the truth of it, in this case you can bring in the language of the Arabs, they bring La. That's what Ibn Kathir, he means when he says إِذَا كَانَ مُنْتَفِيًا. You can bring La. Others, they said, it just is emphasis. But I wanted to bring an extra point here. So So I wanted to bring an extra point here. And the extra point is, sometimes you hear people use words like Za'idah. This La is extra. It's extra. Now we might be able to say that in Arabic, but we can't say it about the Quran. We can't say that the Quran contains something which is extra, unneeded. Kind of an extra word that doesn't have any meaning. In the language of the Arabs, we might be able to say that. We could say, in the language of the Arabs, harfun za'id, something extra. We could say that. For example, I remember one of our teachers, he used to say to us like a little line of poetry. He used to say, Ya taliba ilmin khud fa'ida, ma ba'da idha takun za'ida. He said, in a little line of poetry to remember, every time ma comes after idha, it is za'ida, and it doesn't have an extra meaning. Idha ma, the ma doesn't have an extra meaning. That's fine fi kalam al-Arab. But it's no good in the Quran. We can't say that the Quran contains harfun zaid, something which is unnecessarily added extra. So what do we say? We say that it's for ta'keed, extra emphasis, or that it gives us additional additional emphasis and highlighting on the sentence. We could say that. But what Ibn Kathir says here is not that. He says effectively, when it is something that the people are in a state of denying it, and people deny it, they deny Yawm al-Qiyamah, and you are affirming that it is true, in this case you bring that. He brought that as one opinion, and others they said it's for emphasis. And others they said no, it is because it doesn't even need an oath. It's so clear that it's going to happen, it doesn't need any oath. But in any case, what I wanted you to understand here is just two simple things. The la here gives you extra emphasis, extra meaning. It gives you extra, and it's more than just saying, for example, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, where Allah swears by the sun, the duha. It's more than that. It's got more meaning. La uqsimu biyawm al-qiyamah. It's got more meaning to it. So it's an extra emphasis. And probably the reason for that extra emphasis is when the disbelievers were so strong in denying its existence, so Allah brought extra emphasis in swearing that it exists. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. The next point I wanted to add is, why did Allah Azza wa Jalla mention the idham? أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنْ لَنْ نَجْمَعَ عِظَامًا. For example, it would have been possible to say, does mankind think he will not be resurrected? Why did Allah say, does mankind think that we cannot bring his bones together? Why the bones? Why mention the bones? It's also possible to say, does mankind think that he will not be resurrected? Does mankind think there will be no qiyamah? Does mankind think there will be no hisab? Why mention the bones? There are perhaps two reasons we can highlight in the books of tafsir for the mentioning of this. The most obvious one is that the non-Muslims brought these words when they denied the qiyamah. They denied it like that. أَإِذَا كُنَّا, if we are عِظَامًا وَرُفَاتًا, if we are bones and we are dust. They themselves brought this argument. They many times said, if we are bones, how will Allah resurrect us? When we are dust, when our bones turn to dust, how will Allah bring our bones back? So when they mention this as one of their, you can say, the batil, the falsehood, the shubuhat, the doubts they mentioned. So Allah emphasized that not just I will resurrect you, not just that I will take you to account, but your bones that you said turned to dust, I'm going to bring every one of those bones back in its place. And also, because if the bones come together, it's like the whole person came together, right? Like it's not just like their soul came back, or it's not just like, the bone is like the structure of the person. If every bone is in place, so will the flesh be in place. The eyes, they sit inside the skull, right? The brain is inside the head and the heart is inside the chest. It's like everything will be back how it was. It's kind of an emphasis like that. As opposed to just resurrection, there's less emphasis in just the idea that you'll be, your soul resurrected, or that you will, for example, read your deeds. But to say to someone that every bone that you had in this life will be brought back in the same place that it was, this is a very strong emphasis in really responding to what they said. Because they said our bones are going to turn to dust. Who is going to? Who is going to bring the bones back to life when the bones have just turned into dust? And when we look at the grave, we just see a couple of bones and dust in the grave. Who's going to bring this back to life? So Allah Azza wa Jal spoke about the idham for this reason. With regard to the statement, Bala qadirina ala an nusawwiya banana, there are really two opinions with regard to this. We mentioned one of them, but we're just going to highlight. One of them is that Allah is again emphasizing the detail of the resurrection by saying that even the tips of your fingers, we're going to resurrect them. And there is something here that is worthwhile mentioning. You know that if you listen to some of my classes, sometimes I get upset about what they call al-i'jaz al-ilmi, scientific miracles. I tell people, don't get too hooked up on it and don't get too thinking about it too much. There's too much exaggeration in this, and people bring tafsir that doesn't exist. And they change the word meanings just to match the science. But here there really is, and it is worthwhile mentioning that it is a kind of i'jaz, that the banat, the tips of the fingers are mentioned. Because we know, from what all of us know, that from the most precise and detailed parts of a person's body are their fingertips. That contains their identity. Like now you put your fingertips for your fingerprints, for your identity. And it's a very detailed part of the body. So there is nothing wrong with mentioning this min bab al-i'jaz al-ilmi. There's nothing wrong, because you're not changing the tafsir of the ayah. You're not adding something that's not there. You're not speaking about something that is unproven or unknown, but just that we know that one of the most intricate and detailed parts of a person are the tips of their fingers. And so if Allah speaks about resurrecting you to the tips of your fingers, then no doubt, if your fingertips are resurrected and your fingerprint is resurrected, so will the rest of you with all of the things that you had and all of the deeds that you had. So there is something about the precision of that. Some of them said that what Allah is saying here with the words "an nusawwiya banana" is that Allah not only can He resurrect you as you were, but He can resurrect you with more than what you were. And some of them, they took the word nusawwiya banana, like your fingers will become like all the same length, like a part, like for example the hoof of a camel, or like for example how the animals, some of them they don't have individual fingers, or some of them the length of their toes is all the same. And some of them took it like that, like if we, in the sense that if we can resurrect you, we can even resurrect you different to how you were. Not only exactly how you were, we could change the shape of your hands. So don't think that it's only we can resurrect you how you were. We could resurrect you in a way that was different or better or more than what you were before. As yet, with more than what you had before. And that is also a kind of emphasis, right? It's saying that if Allah Azza wa Jal tells you, if I can, not only can I resurrect you how you were in this life, rather I can resurrect you in a way that is more than what you had in this life. I can give you more than what you had. And if I can give you more than what you had, then certainly I can create you and recreate you and bring you back how you were with your deeds and take you to account for those deeds. So all of this is part of the emphasis which is put on how a person will be resurrected without any doubt. And if Allah Azza wa Jal, the implication is if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so precise that even your fingertips will be brought back, and even the shape of your hands will be brought back, and all of your bones will be brought back, so will your deeds be brought back. So will everything that you have done in your life be brought back. Every small deed and every large deed will also be presented for you, because Allah is not going to let anything go. And likewise, that is part of the statement, "Bala qadirina ala nusawwiya banana." Rather, we are capable of bringing back the shape of his fingertips. We are capable of resurrecting him even to the tips of his fingers. In the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, "Bal yuridu al-insanu liyafjura amam." One of the things I mentioned this being either about the disbelievers at takdeeb. So if it's about the disbelievers, the meaning here is يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه ليكذب بالقيامة التي تأتي. And he's going to deny the qiyamah that is in front of him. But there is something else in this. Because the word yafjura al-fujur means sins, right? Like doing wickedness and evil and sins. So some of the scholars, they looked at the word yafjura and said this word is associated with sins, meaning rather a person is happy to continue sinning and disobeying Allah and forgetting about what is in front of them. So those are two meanings, not one meaning. I think last week the way we explained it, we kind of focused on takdeeb, the idea of denying what is coming. In the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانُ لِيَفْجُرَ أَمَامَهُ. He's going to deny what is coming ahead. He's going to deny what is in front of him. Deny the qiyamah that is in front of him. We covered that last week. But there is another meaning. I alluded to it, but I'm not sure how much I emphasized it. The word yafjura, meaning al-fujur wal-isyan, yani al-fusuq, doing wicked deeds and sins, meaning that the person is happy to sin without thinking of what will be in front of him. And you can actually see this is a theme of the surah, to be honest with you. What do I mean by that? There is a theme in the surah of not thinking about the consequences of what comes later. كَلَّا بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَ وَتَذَرُونَ الْآخِرَةَ. The meaning comes more than once in the surah. The idea of not thinking about the consequences of what you do and what is coming. Not thinking about what's going to happen next. And that is something that you could actually say could be applied, even though the ayah refers to the disbeliever, it could be applied to the believer also. And you could have a Muslim who behaves like that to a certain extent. I mean, we sin, we disobey Allah, and we don't think about the consequences of what is ahead of us, of that sin when we meet Allah Azza wa Jal. So that is part of the meaning that you can take. يَسْأَلُ أَيَّانَ يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ, we covered, and we came to the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, فَإِذَا بَرِقَ الْبَصَرِ. Here there are two ways of reciting. Nafi' recites بَرَقَ, فَإِذَا بَرَقَ الْبَصَرِ, في قراءة نافع rahimahullah ta'ala. He reads بَرَقَ الْبَصَرِ. And the others, they read بَرِقَ, فَإِذَا بَرِقَ الْبَصَرِ. Some of the scholars differentiate between them. So if we've remembered what we said about qira'at, we've said that the qira'at, sometimes the meaning doesn't change, right? When the meaning of each qira'ah is different from the other, the benefit is that you get two tafseer for the price of one. You get the tafseer of each different way of reading. Both of them become true. And you can take them both together. And the reason I mentioned that is that some of the scholars differentiated between the meaning of baraka and bariqa. And some of them didn't. Some of them said they mean the same. They mean the same thing. Let's read what Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala he said. وقال تعالى ها هنا فإذا برق البصر. He said قرأ Abu Amr ibn al-Ala برق. So he said Abu Amr, not Nafi'. I said Nafi'. Here it's Abu Amr. My mistake. What I wrote down is Nafi', but he said Abu Amr. So Abu Amr, he reads برق بكسر الراء. He said أي حارة. وهذا الذي قاله شبيه بقول الله تعالى لا يرتد إليهم طرفهم. أي بل ينظرون من الفزع هكذا وهكذا لا يستقر لهم بصر على شيء من شدة الرعب. So he says bariqa. What it means is that their eyes don't settle on one place. Because they're so terrified and so scared, their eyes don't stay in one place. And this meaning actually comes many times in the Quran. For example, in Surah Ibrahim, لا يرتد إليهم طرفهم. Their sight doesn't come back to them. they don't let their eyes rest on anything. It's like their eyes are moving everywhere. They can't focus on anything because of how terrified they are. And this actually, if you think about it, is an example even today we give for someone who is terrified. Like the eyes are shooting everywhere, the eyes going left, right, up, down. Like he can't control his eyes. In his eyes, he can't look at one thing. Instead of looking at one thing, he's looking left and right and up and down, and he's like looking behind him and around him. He's scared. And because of how scared he is, his eyes don't rest on, he can't settle on looking at one thing. His eyes are darting around. That's one meaning that he mentioned. وَقَرَأَ آخَرٌ بَرَقَ بِالْفَتْحِ. So it is Baraka is Nafi', Qira'at Nafi'. That's, he said Baraka فَإِذَا. So Bariqa is Abu Amr. فَإِذَا بَرِقَ الْبَصَرُ. And Bariqa is Abu Amr and others. And Baraka is Qira'at Nafi'. That's what I thought with the Fatih. He said it's near to the meaning of the first one. وَقَرِيبٌ فِي الْمَعْنَى مِنَ الْأَوَّلِ وَالْمَقْصُودِ أَنَّ الْأَبْصَارَ تنبهر يوم القيامة وتخشع وتحار وتذل من شدة الأهوال ومن عظم ما تشاهده يوم القيامة من الأمور. So he brings Ibn Kathir, he only brings one opinion here. He says it's near to the meaning of the other one, that the eyesight doesn't settle on one place, and that it's scared, and that it becomes like humiliated from the severity of what is happening on that day. Some of the scholars, they didn't take it about Yawm al-Qiyamah at all. They took it as عند الموت, when a person dies. Like when the person's eyes, what happens to the person's eyes when they die? Like that the eyes follow the soul, and then the eyes close. And they took it like that this refers to the moment of death. But most of the scholars of Tafsir, they said it refers to Yawm al-Qiyamah. Some of them said the difference is that one of these two meanings, it means they're not in control of their sight. They lost control of it. They're trying to look at something, but they can't look at it. Their sight is all over the place. And others, they took it as the meaning of humility, and like their eyes are lowered down because they're humiliated, they're in a state of humiliation. And some of them said the meaning is the same. And Ibn Kathir, he said it is because of the severity of what they see Yawm al-Qiyamah. وَخَسَفَ الْقَمَرُ أَيْ ذَهَبَ ضَوْءُهُ. Khasafa, we know khusuf. Khusuf is the eclipse. So what does the meaning khasafa mean here? Means the light went away. وَخَسَفَ الْقَمَرُ. Khasaf al-Qamar, the light of the moon went away. The moon's light went away. Some of them, they said the difference between al-khusuf and al-kusuf is that al-khusuf with the kha that's mentioned here, there's no light at all. It's complete darkness. And we know, we've already covered in Juz Amma, for example, in Surah Al-Takwir, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ كَدَرَتْ. We covered it already. The issue of the light of the sun being wound up, the sun's light going away, the light of the moon going away. And some of them said al-kusuf, it's like when just part of the light goes away. But khasafa here, there's no light. The complete light is gone from the moon. أي ذهب ضوءه وجمع الشمس والقمر. Jumi'a means the sun and the moon come together. The sun and the moon come together. So the question is, what do they come together for? وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. Remember, the sun hasn't been mentioned in the surah until now. This is the first time. The moon's light is mentioned. فَإِذَا بَرِقَ الْبَصَرُ وَخَسَفَ الْقَمَرُ. And now the light of the moon has gone. The light of the moon has gone. But it doesn't mention about the sun until it says وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. So one opinion about Jumi'a means Jumi'a, meaning it goes with the moon in the light going away, and the light of the sun will go like the moon. So the sun and the moon are together in the sense that the light of them will go away. That is one opinion. Jumi'a here means they share the characteristic that the light will go away. But that's not the opinion that is the most common. The one that is the most common is the one that Ibn Kathir mentions here. He said, قال مجاهد كورا. وقرأ ابن زيد عند تفسير هذه الآية إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت. وروى عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه أنه قرأ وجمع بين الشمس والقمر. So the most common tafsir, the one that we have here, Ibn Kathir mentions more than one in his full tafsir, if I'm not mistaken, but in the summary here, is that Kuwira. So when we said about the sun in Surah Al-Takwir, the Shamsu Kuwirat, we mentioned the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the sun and the moon will be wound up and put into Jahannam. Will be wound up and cast into Jahannam. And that is what comes to mind in the tafsir. وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. The sun and the moon will both be wound up and cast into Jahannam. Be careful here about a mistaken tafsir which is not correct, which some people might not be able to tell the difference between it and the correct one. And that is that the sun and the moon will become the fire of Jahannam. And that the fire of Jahannam will come from the fire of the sun. This is not correct. Why? First of all, it's not mentioned in the hadith. That's the first issue. But more than that, the fire is present today. The fire being kindled Yawm al-Qiyamah, no problem. And it's becoming big and the fire becoming very strong. That's no issue. But the idea that Jahannam will come because of the sun, one of the principles we have in belief in Al-Yawm Al-Akhir is that Jannah and Jahannam have already been created. So that is it's wrong to say that the sun will become Jahannam. Rather, the sun will be cast into, will be wound up. The sun and the moon will be wound up and cast into Jahannam. This is what was reported, and we mentioned the details of it. إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ. And that's what Ibn Zayd recited when he came to the tafsir. He said the meaning of وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ, the meaning is إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ كَدَرَتْ. So he's making tafsir of the Quran with the Quran. He said the tafsir of this ayah is the same tafsir of Surah Al-Takwir, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ كَدَرَتْ. That's exactly the tafsir of وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. It's narrated that Ibn Mas'ud used to read وَجُمِعَ بَيْنَ الشَّمْسِ وَالْقَمَرِ. The sun and the moon will be brought together. Will be brought together. يَقُولُ الْإِنسَانُ يَوْمَئِذٍ أَيْنَ الْمَفَرُ. أي إذا عاين ابن آدم هذه الأهوال يوم القيامة حينئذ يريد أن يفر ويقول أين المفر. أي هل من ملجأ أو مائل. Or he said هل من ملجأ أو موئل. هل من ملجأ أو موئل. He said that when Ibn Adam sees what will happen Yawm al-Qiyamah, and their eyesight is darting around, they see the sun being wound up, and they see the light of the moon disappear and the stars falling down. They see the earth replaced with another earth, and the situation is so severe that their eyes they have no control of their eyes. They lost control of their eyes, looking around everywhere. In this situation, what would a person look for? أين المفر? Where can I run to? Where can I run away? And that's why, really, when a person is in a very severe situation, they really look for, you can see a couple of things. They either look for someone who can protect them. They look for someone, and give me somebody who is strong enough, who is powerful enough. Like if there's a war, or if there's something very bad, like there's no more, for example, the loss of safety, and there's fighting on the streets, and let me find someone who can protect me, or let me run far away to a place that is away from all the people, a place which is, and it can give me some protection and I can hide in it. Like people in the olden times used to run to the mountains. If there was a war, the people would run to the mountains, and they would say, I'll just stay in the mountains. I will not be harmed by the war that is happening on the ground. Maybe until today, people do that in some places. So this is what is meant here. Where can I run to? Is there a fortress? Is there a mountain? Is there a person who I can run to, that somebody can protect me from what is happening in front of my eyes? Kalla la wazar. Kalla is used to rebuke someone. We use this statement kalla to rebuke something which is a wrong concept. Kalla. There is no way, there is no place for you to run. There is no escape. There is no one going to protect you. There is no shafa'ah unless Allah gives permission. There is nothing going to save you Yawm al-Qiyamah. And there is no place for you to run to. كلا لا وزر إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر. He said, قال ابن مسعود وابن عباس رضي الله عنه وسعيد بن جبير وغير واحد من السلف أي لا نجاه. وهذه الآية كقوله تعالى ما لكم من ملجأ يومئذ وما لكم من نكير. أي ليس لكم مكان تتنكرون فيه. وكذا قالها هنا لا وزر أي ليس لكم مكان تعتصمون فيه. He said that a number of the early generations, they said لا نجاه, there is no safety. كلا لا وزر, there is no place that is safe for you. And he said this is like the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, ما لكم من ملجأ, you have no malja, no place to go back to be safe. وما لكم من نكير, and you don't have any place that you can hide. So there are two meanings here. A malja is a place of safety. For example, like a fortress, a place where you feel safe. There's no place to feel safe. كلا لا وزر, there is no place to feel safe. And the meaning of nakir is a place where you can be anonymous. You can hide and nobody will see you. You can just hide somewhere. Maybe you're not safe, but you're hidden. Because people in a terror look for two things. They either look for a safe place, or they look to hide somewhere where nobody can find them. And the word wazar, it covers both of these two. Yani, kalla la wazar, there is nowhere safe for you to hide, to be, and there is no place for you to hide. And that's why he said, and it is no place for you to protect yourself, and there's no place for you to hide. He said, وَلِهَذَا قَالَ إِلَى رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمُسْتَقَرُ أي المرجع والمصير. To your Lord on that day is the place that you're going to come back to. And you're all going to be made to stand in front of Allah. You're all going back to Allah. No one is going to be protected. No one is going to be able to hide. No one's going to be able, and in such a big crowd, you think maybe I could stay anonymous. People might not see me. I can just hide. But there is nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to be safe. There is nobody who's going to stand up for you and protect you. On the day that a person will run away from their spouse, they'll run away from their father, they'll run away from their mother, they'll run away from their children. There's no shafa'atu shafi'een, there's no intercession from anyone. There's nobody going to protect you because of family ties. Nobody's going to protect you because you used to be with them in this world. People will be enemies to each other on that day except for the muttaqeen, the people of taqwa. People will be enemies to each other on that day. So this is the meaning that is found in these ayat. People, when you see the terrors of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and of course the terrors of Yawm al-Qiyamah is one of the themes of the surah, Ahwal Yawm al-Qiyamah, terrors of Yawm al-Qiyamah. A person's natural reaction will be, Ayn al-Masar? Where can I run away to? Is there a place I can hide? Is there somebody can protect me? Is there a place that I can be safe from this punishment? Kalla la wazar. There's nothing, nobody gonna help you, no place to run away, nowhere you can hide. Instead, all of you are going to be driven until you stand before Allah Azza wa Jal and you answer for what it is that you did. Then Allah Azza wa Jal said, يُنَبَّأُ الْإِنسَانُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِمَا قَدَّمَ وَأَخَّرَ أي يخبر ويخبر بجميع أعماله قديمها وحديثها أولها وآخرها صغيرها وكبيرها كما قال تعالى ووجدوا ما عملوا حاضرا ولا يظلم ربك أحدا وهكذا قال ها هنا بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرا ولو ألقى معاذيره. He says يُنَبَّأُ الْإِنسان. We remind ourselves, like we said in Surah An-Naba, the word Naba is used for Al-Khabar Al-Azim, a very big, significant, important event. You don't say Naba for something like small. Like Naba is like a war broke out. That is Naba. Naba is that there was a catastrophe and many thousands of people died. This is Naba. But you don't say Naba for like, about there's a class tomorrow. Like for this you say Khabar. So the Arabs, they use the word Naba for Al-Amr Al-Azim, something very, very, very serious that happened. And that's what Allah says about your deeds. يُنَبَّأُ الْإِنسَانِ. That man on that day, and this insan is general, everybody, and be informed of what was done before, qaddama, and what was done later. So that's what Ibn Kathir, he says here. He says, qadimiha wa hadithiha. All the things you did and the things you did right at the end of your life. Right, from the beginning of your life to the end of your life. أولها وآخرها, the first thing you did until the last thing you did. صغيرها وكبيرها, the little things and the big things you did. All of it you're going to be informed. You're going to be informed about it. Like the statement of Allah, وَوَجَدُوا مَا عَمِلُوا حَاضِرًا, they found what they had done present in front of them. وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا, your Lord does not oppress anybody. There are other opinions regarding this ayah. Opinion that Ibn Kathir brought here is not the only opinion. But we can see it's the most obvious of the opinions. And that مَا قَدَّمَ وَأَخَّرَ. In some of them, for example, they said the good deeds you took with you and the wealth that you left behind in this world for your relatives and things like that. But none of that is very obvious in the tafsir. And the clear tafsir of it is everything you have done from the beginning of your life until the end of your life, you're going to be told about it. And your Lord will not oppress you in anything. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jalla said, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرَةٌ وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرَهُ. Ibn Kathir, he says here, أي هو شهيد على نفسه عالم بما فعله ولو اعتذر وأنكر كما قال تعالى اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. وقال علي بن أبي طلحة عن ابن عباس بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة يقول سمعه وبصره ويداه ورجلاه وجوارحه. وقال قتادة شاهد على نفسه. وفي رواية قال إذا شئت والله رأيته بصيرا بعيوب الناس وذنوبهم غافلا عن ذنوبه. So here there are quite a few different opinions we have to sort out here from the statement of Ibn Kathir. The most obvious, بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة. A person knows fine well about themselves. And whatever, and here he says basir, the meaning of basir or basira here, it means shahid. That's the first opinion. And that's the first one Ibn Kathir brings. It means you are a witness against yourself. No matter what excuses you bring, you yourself know who you are. And you know what you've done. And that's why, if you think about it, how many times do those people excuse themselves or try to Yawm al-Qiyamah? Wallahi Rabbina ma kunna mushrikeen. Wallahi, we never used to make shirk with you, O Allah. بل الإنسان على نفسه بصير. Person knows themselves fine. You know yourself fine well. ولو ألقى معاذيرا. Even if you try to make excuses Yawm al-Qiyamah to say what you did, you know what you're going to come in front of Allah with. And you know yourself. So you are, that's one, that you are shahidun ala, and you know yourself. That's the first one. The second one is that your own body will testify against you. This is the second opinion about the ayah, or the second meaning you can take from the ayah. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. Yani even if your tongue excuses your actions, your hands and your limbs are going to speak against you. As we've heard in the many ayats of the Quran that speak about that. So the first one is the person knows themselves, and you know yourself fine well. And you know what you have done, and when you read that book, you know that these are the deeds that I did. Even if you try to say, no, I didn't do it, you know fine well that what you read in that book is what you did. You know yourself. The second one is, even if you excuse yourself with your tongue, your hands and your feet and your skin is going to testify what you did. The third that is mentioned about this ayah is that this ayah doesn't have to just apply Yawm al-Qiyamah, but even in this world. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. Even in this world, you know the person that you really are. Or you should know the person that you really are. Even if you make excuses, even if you present a different face to the people. And even though I don't think this is the main tafsir of the ayah, because of the fact that the ayah is talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah, the siyaq is Yawm al-Qiyamah. But it's a point of benefit to mention generally that we human beings know ourselves. Even you come to the dars, you wear the best clothing, you sit, you make hurts, but you know what is in that cavity in your chest. What is it like? You know the person you are like when you switch off the light and when you close the door. You know the person at that time, who you really are. Even if you show a different face to the people. Some of the scholars took this from the lugha of the ayah as well, even though it's not the tafsir. I don't say it's the tafsir of the ayah. I think it's mimma yustafadu min al-ayah. You can benefit from the ayah, but it's not the tafsir, because the tafsir is Yawm al-Qiyamah. But what you can benefit from the ayah, mimma yustafad min al-ayah, what you can take from the ayah. Some of them said, ma'adhirah, it could be also the plural of mi'dar, meaning satar, the curtains, sutur. When you put your curtain down, when you close your curtain at night, you draw your curtains. Even when you draw your curtains, you know who is behind the curtain. Does that make sense? That's not the tafsir of the ayah, because lughatan it's fine. You can take the language accommodates. but the context and the tafsir of the Salaf doesn't accommodate it. But the language, it accommodates it. The word ma'adira, it can mean your curtains. وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَادِيرَ. And even if he closes his curtains. But what you can benefit from it, it is a benefit, a genuine benefit. That when you close your curtain and you switch the light and you close the door and you lock the door and there's nobody sees you except Allah, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. You still see yourself. Even how you show yourself in front of people, how you present yourself, how good you make out yourself to be, but you still know the person who closes the curtains at night. Who is he? You know yourself. Don't fool, you can't fool you. You can fool everybody else. You can't fool yourself. You certainly can't fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The مِمَّا يُسْتَفَادْ مِنَ الْآيَةِ. The reason I say that is some of them mentioned it as a tafsir. Again, as a tafsir, it has a problem. The problem as a tafsir is that it is khilaf al-mutabadir. It's not what comes to mind. You have to kind of like go around the ayah. Like you have to kind of say, okay, ma'adhir, it could mean this. And it, like you have to kind of go around. But you do benefit it. You do think about it. That if you want to be successful Yawm al-Qiyamah and you want to be able to pass this great exam in front of Allah, that Allah tells you everything you've done, the first thing you need to do is look at your own self today. Who is this person inside? Not how do I show myself to the people. Everybody shows their best face to the people. But you look at yourself inside tonight when you switch off the light and you close the curtain and you ask, who am I? Because you can look at yourself, you know who you are. So we just finished this part of the tafsir, inshallah. So we said, وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرَهُ. Ibn Kathir, he says, وَقَالَ مُجَاهِدْ وَلَوْ جَادَلَ عَنْهَا فَهُوَ بَصِيرٌ عَلَيْهَا. وَقَالَ قَتَادَةُ لَوْ اعْتَذَرَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِالْبَاطِلِ لَا يُقْبَلُ مِنْهُ. وقال السدي ولو ألقى معاذير حجته كقوله تعالى ثم لم تكن فتنتهم إلا أن قالوا والله ربنا ما كنا مشركين. وكقوله تعالى يوم يبعثهم الله جميعا فيحرفون له كما يحرفون لكم ويحسبون أنهم على شيء ألا إنهم هم الكاذبون. So he brings a number of different statements from the scholars of tafsir with regard to the meaning of even if he gives his excuses. He says even if he argues Yawm al-Qiyamah about what he's done, in reality he knows the reality of himself. And Qatada, he says, even if he tries to make excuses with falsehood on that day, those false excuses will not be accepted from him. And As-Suddi, he said, his arguments that he makes, he tries to present his arguments, but it will not be accepted. Like them saying, Wallahi Rabbina ma kunna mushrikeen. Like them saying, Wallahi Rabbina ma kunna mushrikeen. I swear by Allah, we never made shirk. Like that. Or like them swearing to Allah like they swear to you. And they swear an oath to Allah, Wallahi, we never did it. Even like they used to swear to you in this world. He said, وقال العوفي عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما ولو ألقى معاذيره هي الاعتذار. In the excuses. The opinion of Ibn Abbas, the excuses. ألم تسمع أنه قال لا ينفع الظالمين معذرتهم. This ayah in Surah Ghafir. لا ينفع الظالمين معذرتهم. The oppressive people will not benefit from their excuses. This is a good proof, this is a good evidence to use that this is the meaning of the ayah in Surah Al-Qiyamah. Because even though people said, well, the ayah could mean like this or it could mean like that, but the ayah in Surah Ghafir tells us clearly that they will try to make excuses for what they did Yawm al-Qiyamah, and those excuses will not benefit them. And that is definitely what comes to mind in the ayah here. So when you listen to the ayah here, what comes to mind and what is apparent from the wording is the same meaning in Surah, that their excuses will not benefit them. And he also mentions وَأَلْقَوْا إِلَى اللَّهِ يَوْمَئِذٍ السَّلَمَ, and the statement فَأَلْقَوْا السَّلَمَ, in the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, فَأَلْقُوا السَّلَمَ مَا كُنَّا نَعْمَلُ مِنْ سُوءٍ. And when they used to say, they used to give excuses before Allah that we didn't do anything bad. And when they said, وَاللَّهِ رَبِّنَا مَا كُنَّا مُشْرِكِينَ, that by Allah, our Lord, we never made a partner, that these excuses will not benefit them. They're not going to benefit from these excuses that they made. Having said that they will not benefit from the excuses, and that this is the apparent meaning of the ayah, it is worthwhile keeping in mind the meaning that we mentioned, that a person knows themselves in this world, and they should look at themselves and take themselves to account. And this is linked to an-nafs al-lawwamah, the soul that blames themselves. Look at yourself, know yourself. And there's a small benefit in this. I just wanted to mention it from the benefits here. And that is that it's not even your excuses, but even what other people say about you in this world. Someone praises you. It's what is befitting for a person is for a person to know who they really are. And if you are basirun binafsik, you know who you are, then really the praise of the people shouldn't make you proud of yourself. Because you see, wallahi, this person doesn't know me. This person who praises me, they don't know me. They don't know what I do. They don't know who I am. They don't know what's in my heart. There's a statement like that from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, that he said that if a person knows themselves, the praise of the people doesn't affect them. So this is a benefit you can also think that if you should know yourself, and you should see the mistakes you've made, and you should realize how much you have disobeyed Allah, and you should realize how much you are in need of Allah's forgiveness and pardon. And if you know this about yourself, then perhaps this will make the examination Yawm al-Qiyamah easy. And there are people it's made easy for. There are people who will have hisaban yasira, an easy account. And like Al-Hasan al-Basri said, rahimahullah ta'ala, we mentioned last week, that the people who make their account hard for themselves in this life, and they look at themselves in this life, they will have an easy account Yawm al-Qiyamah. But the people who are easy on themselves in this life, they will not look, or they will have a difficult account Yawm al-Qiyamah. There is one more meaning in the ayah which we didn't mention. Some of them said the word bal here, what it indicates is that some people spend their time busy with other people's problems. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. I'll read you what Ibn Kathir said about it, because it's worthwhile. He said, رَأَيْتَهُ بَصِيرًا بِعُيُوبِ النَّاسِ وَذُنُوبِهِمْ غَافِلًا عَنْ ذُنُوبِهِ. You see some people, they're busy with other people's mistakes, but they don't look at their own mistakes. And if they were to look at their own mistakes, they would see the severity of what they have. But they're busy with the mistakes of other people. And he said, يُقَالُ إِنَّ فِي الْإِنْجِيلِ مَكْتُوبًا, يعني it's written in the Injil, يَا بَنَ آدَمْ تُبْصِرُ الْقَذَاةَ فِي عَيْنِ أَخِيكَ وَتَتْرُكَ الْجَذَعَ فِي عَيْنِكَ لَا تُبْصِرُ. And he said from that which is said that it's written in the Injil, that you see any speck of dust or the speck in your brother's eye, and you ignore the big branch you have in your own eye. You have a huge problem yourself, but you look at the tiny problem that the other person has. So this is mimma yustafad. I don't think, again, tafseer of the ayah, the direct tafseer, maybe it's a bit much, but to say that you can benefit from the ayah, that you should be looking at yourself, not looking at the mistakes of other people. There is something amazing in this I would advise everyone to read it, if you can. And that is the advice of Abbad ibn Abbad al-Khawas to the Ummah. It's mentioned in Sunan al-Darimi. It's been translated into English in a book called From the Advice of the Salaf. It's a very nice book. There's the advice of Abbad ibn Abbad to the Ummah. His name is Abbad ibn Abbad al-Khawas al-Arsufi, something like that. He was from the companions of Sufyan al-Thawri. And he wrote about this issue. Like in his advice, he wrote about there are some people who are so busy with the mistakes of other people, they never look at their own mistakes. The first person you should look at, doesn't mean you should never look at anyone else's mistakes. We're not saying you should never correct someone or never make ikar or munkar. You should. We're not saying never ever criticize, but we're just saying that some people, their only concern is what other people do. And they never ever look at what's in their own. And if they look at the tiny speck in their brother's eye, they don't see the big block that's in their own eye. There are some people like that. So don't misunderstand that this means you don't criticize or you don't correct somebody or you don't look out for a mistake and help people to get over it. But at the same time, don't be someone who is mashghulun bi'uyub ghayrik. And you're busy with the mistakes of other people and you never ever look at your own mistakes. And that's mimma yustafadu min al-ayah. You can take it from the ayah. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرَةٌ وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرَهُ. Inshallah ta'ala, next week we'll try to go as quick as we can. I don't know how much more time we will have, or if we will even get another week after next week, I'm not sure. But because we won't in Ramadan, we will not be able to. But at least inshallah ta'ala, we will try our best to finish the surah before we break for Ramadan, inshallah. So I think it's better for us to stop now so we don't get in the way of salah and people can go and make wudu. And maybe we can catch any questions at the end. That's what Allah Azza wa Jalla made easy for me to mention. Allah knows best. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.